Templeton's, her requirement is to be picking up her kids at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so she's kindly stepped aside to allow Andrea to go first. So we'll deal with all the Burwood Pegasus ones, and we're going to start with the QE2 paper, which is in Agenda C, Supplementary Agenda, item number
64.
64.
Page 239.
Page 239. Yep, Eastern Rec and Sports Centre Council Report, December 12, and we have a recommendation to change the scope in accordance with consultation procurement to follow a design and build process, reporting back to council, etc., etc. And I presume that David would like to move that motion, and I know that. I mean, sorry, Glenn. I looked at you, and this is the second time I've done that. I've confused Yanni with Raf, and I've now confused Glenn with David. So that's there's something wrong with my eyesight. So. But David isn't here, and I know he'd like to second it, but yeah, okay, Phil will second it. So move Glenn, seconded Phil, and Andrea, over to you.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's with great delight that we bring this report to you. It's been a long journey. I do want to start by just feeding back that the community, all the feedback that we've had from the community is that this doesn't meet the aspirations of what they're after. However, they do understand the financial state, that the budget is set at 30.5 million and 6.5 million for the toys. And I'm very pleased to report that I think we have stretched that to the max, and I think we have got an absolutely fantastic facility. And I know that the process has been long and at times a challenge, but I think that it has meant we have got a much better outcome as far as the facility. Did you want me to go through some of the things that we've changed, page 243, or do you want just to go into it?
Well, I think just a quick synopsis. People have read the paper.
Yeah. So I think one of the big things that we heard from the public was that they wanted more swim area, and so to do that we have increased the learners pool from 16 metres long to 25 metres long. This gives us now 2 25-metre pools in the facility, and to do that we obviously had to find some savings elsewhere, and so the council have been very good at working very hard to find those. So they found them in two main places. One was reducing the movable floor to half, and we're more than happy that that still meets the usability obligations of what we're hoping for. And the other thing is changing the pool tank to stainless steel. Obviously we know from all our earthquake experience that lighter is better in earthquakes, and so stainless steel was obviously better than concrete, and that also decreases the geotech costs. So we're really happy with that outcome. We think that that does go some way to satisfying the community aspirations and allay some of the concerns around the size of the facility in relation to the population usage. The toys, 13.6, I think we've come up with a really good selection of toys. The Hydroslide, if you can imagine, it's a combination of a normal Hydroslide with the Super Bowl that's at Hemner Springs.
Yeah.
It's got, you ride on little inflatable rafts, and as you go down the Hydroslide, at several points along the journey, there's these little spinny globes that you go into that's somewhat similar to the Super Bowl. So we think that's really a fantastic deal for the East. We think that gives us a really good point of difference from other Hydroslides around. There've been none like that in the South Island. The playground, the adventure playground, that's similar to the one at Hemner Springs. That we think those are really fun, very useful. The lazy river, what the community said quite loud and clear is they wanted a big lazy river. However, when we looked at it, that would have taken up almost all our leisure space. So what we decided to do was go for the medium one, but put it on steroids. So we're going to put the strongest jets we can have. We're going to add into the middle of it, if you imagine it's a figure 8, in the middle sort of dead spots, we're going to put active spas, we're calling them, for the active relaxers, or the mothers that want to get a bit of a back massage while they're watching the kids go round the thing. So we've managed to soup it up, and that's something that we wouldn't have got if we hadn't had this consultation period. So it's really quite a buzz to see that we've been able to get better than what we could have had we just gone through the normal process. We're really stoked with all the other elements are fairly standard, your little water bucket dunkers and splashes and those sorts of things. But we're really pleased with the way that negotiation and discussion went on with staff. The board had a meeting where we got to play, they made cutouts of all the different things, and we got to play jigsaw pieces for the evening, and at the end of the evening we had ours laid out on the table of what we'd come up with, and then the architects brought their one that they'd done, and they were just about identical.
Wow.
Which really goes to prove that the board had enough information. We'd been given all the right information that we could make the decision that the professionals had also come up with. So it really confirmed to us that that we have been well informed and well included in the process, that we're now up to speed enough to have made those calls. So yeah, really delighted to present this today. It's been a fantastic journey. I'd like to thank the staff. I know we've pushed them to the limits sometimes of being a bit demanding and things, but they've stepped up and helped us to journey through this.
Thank you, Andrew, and I again, speaking on behalf of the entire council, it was always going to be challenging replacing a metro sports facility with a community facility. Always going to be a challenge. Expectations that were set by the previous council before we were elected and before we knew the true state of our finances, and what references to Jelly Park might mean to different people. Always a very challenging environment, but I think it's better to be honest with people, tell people what the financial situation is, and then set expectations and engage people in the process. And I think, given that you were handed a poison chalice in one respect, you've just turned it into a magnificent outcome. So I just want to congratulate the whole community board and the community group that you engaged in that process, and the groups and the children. I loved being part of receiving all of these fantastic ideas from the children. It's been an incredible process, and apart from the way it started, I think that you've turned it into a really good result for the East. So they're not having a metro sports facility, that's going into town. They've got an amazing community facility on their way. So thank you very much for all that you've done. Glenn?
You happy just to get straight into discussion?
Yeah, I think we should go straight to debate.
Yeah, I think...
Hey? Well, you haven't got... Do we need staff at the table if you've got questions? I wish that we'd been notified of this, Yanni. John, would you like to...
We've got huge amounts of supplementaries.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that's got questions? Andrew. Okay, so Yanni.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you for coming to the table. I just wanted to get, I guess, just a contrast in terms of the size of the water space that was available. So, just if you were comparing it to existing council facilities, noting that it's going to have the unique water features like the hydrosite, is this more comparable to like Graham Condon in terms of pool size, or is it more comparable to like Jelly Park, or is it kind of in the middle?
The closest facility we have in terms of size, councillor, is Jelly Park. The proposed design has far more indoor water space than Jelly Park. What it doesn't have is the extensive outdoor water space that Jelly Park has. But it's the closest comparison would be Jelly Park. It's considerably bigger than Graham Condon and considerably bigger than Pioneer.
And is that,
Thank you.
that's without the additional water features like the hydro slide?
Yes.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, two very quick questions. On page 243 in table 2, the first line there is around reducing the movable floor to half the pool area. And we're saying it doesn't reduce the facility flexibility or usability. What was the reason that we were looking at more than half in the beginning, and is there really no impact of reducing this to half the size?
There's really no impact. The purpose of the movable floor is to allow multi-use of the main pool. There is no real need for the whole of the main pool to be shallowed, and there's always a need for some area of deep water. I think the inclusion of a movable floor for the whole of the pool area initially was as much of a costing exercise as anything. And it just allowed a little bit of flexibility should we wanted to lift the whole of the pool floor. It became clear very, very quickly that there could be no conceivable reason for doing that, and the board was able to consider it and drop the requirement quite quickly.
Yep, that's great. Thank you for that. And then second very quick question, on page 246, paragraph 14.7, obviously a shortfall of 600,000. I'm just keen to know that there is a very high level of confidence that we will be able to find the savings that are noted in 14.7.
Yes, there is. We and the board, staff and the board, challenged our internal project manager, who in turn challenged the external quantity surveyors, and they've all confirmed that they are very comfortable with this, and history has shown us to be able to do this. Great. So yes, there's a very high level of confidence.
Right, I'll open it up for debate. Glenn?
Okay, thank you. It's tremendous to get to this point. Many of you will realise that the community's pushed hard on this with the community board, and that's very appropriate given the significance of this complex for the community and the loss and their hopes for the future. As a board, we've pushed back hard on the staff, as John would know. I would like to think as a council you will see that in terms of the $1.1 million saving, we've done quite well. So there have been 3 savings there. 2 go together by pushing on the stainless steel pool. That's also a ground remediation saving. By pushing back on the movable floor, that's another saving. In this, we are protecting the contingency. I've had a conversation with Mark, whose last name escapes me.
Mark Noonan,
who's built 5 or 6 or 7 complexes in the city. He is happy with this procurement route in term build and design in terms of protecting that contingency. So I think in relation to the kind of financial stewardship of it, we're on sound ground there. And I think if we remember how this looks in terms of the wider context, I describe it as an arc of investment in the east with the Burwood Hospital, the Aranui campus, hopefully investment in New Brighton as well. You put this in together and you're starting to shift the pendulum a bit. So I think this will be tremendous. Once this is up and running along with the 2 schools, this really will be a desirable and exciting hub for people to come to. And it really will start to build back confidence in the people of the East.
Thank you. David?
Thank you. I think we're all well aware that it's been a subject of intense debate in our part of the city, and I'm very pleased to see that we've come to a resolution at the end that I believe we've stretched the budget as far as we possibly can. We've got as much facility into this complex or new facility that we possibly can. And I'm really buoyed by a comment I think that came out at our last board meeting, that we believe that this will end up being the preeminent suburban swimming facility in Christchurch. There's always been a lot of angst, I suppose, in our community that we lost QE2, the funding from the from insurance and all sorts of things was put into Metro Sports in town, and that in itself created quite a debate. I'm confident that we've gone through a great process here to reach where we are now. There was a lot of debate about this, the comment about something better than Jelly Park. I believe we are better than Jelly Park, and in terms of indoor facilities. And one extremely important aspect of the final concept that we signed off on was the board is extremely adamant that a parcel of land in that complex or adjacent to it needs to be earmarked for possible future expansion. So if in the next 5 or 10 years the city needs or urgently needs expansion of swimming facilities, we have the scope to do that at QE2. And that to me was a very important aspect of the final sign-off for the board. So I think, you know, despite the fact that there has been a bit of community angst over 50-metre pools, 35-metre pools, I believe we've come out with the best solution we can with the money that we have allocated, and we have really gone to great lengths to really stretch that budget. And in the end, we've ended up with a 25-metre, 10-metre wide learn-to-swim pool, which is far, far bigger than anything else in town. So I'd just like to offer my thanks to John and Mark Noonan and Simon Batrick that were heavily involved in this project, and we have engaged extensively with Warren and Marnie and a few other consultants to actually get a good feel for how the pool should end up. We've travelled to every other major pool facility in the greater Canterbury area, for Ashburton to Rangiora, picked the bones out of all of these facilities to come up with what we believe is good for our community. So very, very happy to endorse what we have before us today, and I think it's ultimately a great outcome. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, I'll put Yanni.
Thank you. Yeah,